Good morning, Sister Veronica in Houston. You are number one in the comments. Good morning. There are 31 of you on. Good morning. I see you joining. I am trying to get my little comment up. And then I need to turn on a little more light for us. And let's see here. Good morning. You all see I'm in a different space today. So I am, hold on, let me turn the light on. Okay, forgive me. Welcome to Sunday school. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I have been on a roll this morning. I got my first Sunday school class started, and then I drove 25 minutes to church. So I just got in the door, and I am here with you all, and then I get to actually walk into, we're not having service yet. I'll be on the skeleton crew of about 10 or 11 today. So I will be present in the sanctuary, and I'm back here, and this is my Sunday school classroom. So this is what my normal Sundays look like. So good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. 56 of you are online so far. Only 10 of you have clicked that thumbs up like button. So do me a favor, click that button. Show me a little love this morning. We're going to talk about Wisdom's Feast. We're the Feast of Wisdom, depending on what your book calls it. We're going to get into it. It is a juicy lesson. My class tried to hold hostage a few minutes ago because it was a good lesson. So it's hot back here. Good lesson. And I can't wait to get into it with you all. So are you ready? If you're ready, go ahead and tell me ready in the comments. Good morning to you. I see you from all over the place. This is awesome. All right, let's pray. I need some air. All right, Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this opportunity to come together again to study your word. God, your word is life to us, and you are an awesome God. We thank you for this day, another day that you've given us, that you allow us life and health and strength, and not for our own, God, but that we're able to be better agents and better citizens of your kingdom, that we can make our world and our spaces a better place, that we can live quality lives as your children. Thank you that you call us as your children. You give us the adoption as children, and you give us blessings and benefits. We love you for it. And we thank you for wisdom that you release to us, godly wisdom and godly strategies to learn how to navigate this crazy journey that we call life. Thank you for giving us that. Thank you for loving us enough to be concerned about us. Now, God, bless us in this place. Bless every person who will attend our class today. God, meet every need. You know what they stand in the need of. So meet every need and be the great God that you are. Open up our understanding. Show us something new in your word. Allow us to relate to your word in a new way. We love you and give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Now, as I am still kind of getting set up here, y'all know I don't normally fan, but because we're not using all parts of the church right now, there is no air on back here. So if I start to fan or start looking for something to fan, it is for no other reason. And we just bless God that I don't have on any makeup today. Praise the Lord. All right. All right. So let's talk about the Feasts of Wisdom, the Feast of Wisdom. And I just want to know, what do you all think about when you think about a feast? What does a feast mean for you? What does it mean when you're going to show up at a feast? What does it mean? So my family, ordinarily this weekend, my family would be in Hope, Arkansas. And my mom is from Hope, Arkansas. I've got family in Hope and in Texarkana, in Prescott, in those areas. And so normally this weekend is homecoming. And that is one of those times of year that I think about a feast, because on Friday, they kind of get together just as a welcome kind of activity. But on Saturday, we'll wake up and we'll go out to the pond and go fishing. And all of the fish that are caught become a part of what will be a feast later in the day. The fish are clean. There's a fish fry. There are grills going. People are out on the church lots. There's food that's brought in. And then, of course, before the end of the day, Hope is the watermelon capital of the world. And so there will be watermelon. And the bottom line is, there's family, friends that have come from all over the country, generations of people together, and nobody leaves there saying, I'm empty or I'm hungry. As a matter of fact, there's usually so much food on Friday that when we go on Saturday, that when we come back on Sunday, in between the morning service and the afternoon piece, there's still food that we can bring out and kind of heat up leftovers or do something so that everybody gets a little something to eat in between the service. So I'm with you all. It is Sister Bernadette Ricks. It's a happy celebration. I see eating. I see food. Sister Woodard says food. Absolutely. The table is spread with good food, TR Joyner tells us. Sister Cheryl, the second large event for our family is absolutely Thanksgiving. I think I've shared my mother is one of 12 children. And so when we get together, Thanksgiving is a big deal. On our largest years, it is not uncommon to have 60 or 70 people who will come through the house. And again, Asa Sims, lots of food, delicious food, Nikki S. And we do not go away empty. We do not go away hungry. And so that is what we will see this morning as we see two invitations that are extended. And we're going to meet two very different women who extend invitations as we continue this discussion about wisdom and how we get wisdom, how we gain wisdom. Proverbs chapter 9 is where we're reading this morning. And I'll be reading out of the King James just because, actually, no, I have two versions in here. I'm going to read, I will read the amplified version out of this commentary today. That'll be different. We'll still get the same substance. Verses 1 through 6, 8 through 10, 13 through 18 are our Bible basis. The Bible truth is Lady Wisdom offers life. Lady Folly offers death. Both invite listeners to their banquets. Our memory verse is going to be verse 9, and the lesson aim is that we will compare and contrast the call and promise of wisdom with that of folly. Choose to walk the path of wisdom and receive its benefits and grow in the fear and knowledge of the Lord. So reading from the Amplified, wisdom has built her house, spacious and sufficient. She has hewn out and set up her 7 pillars. She has prepared her food. She has mixed her wine. She has also set her table. She had sent forth her maidens. She calls from the highest places of the city. Whoever is naive or inexperienced, let him turn in here. As for him who lacks understanding, she says, come eat my food and my drink and the wine that I've mixed. Accept my gifts. Leave behind your foolishness and the foolish and live and walk in the way of insight and understanding. Do not offer a scoffer who foolishly ridicules and takes no responsibility for his error, for he will hate you. Or correct a wise man who learns from his error. He will love you. Give instruction to a wise man. He will become even wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The reverent fear of the Lord is that worshiping him and regarding him as truly awesome is the beginning of the preeminent part of wisdom. It's the starting point and the essence. And the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding and spiritual insight. The foolish woman is restless and noisy. She is naive and easily misled and thoughtless and knows nothing at all of eternal value. She sits at the door of her own houseway on a seat by the high and conspicuous place of the city, calling those who pass by, who are making their path straight. Whoever is naive or inexperienced, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks understanding or common sense, she says, stolen waters are sweet because they are forbidden, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the spirits of the dead are there, and that her guests are already in the depths of Sheol and the nether world, the place of the dead. This is our reading for this morning, as we're again looking at two very different invitations that sort of land in very different places. And as I look at this, in life, we are always going to be given options. And as we've looked at the book of Proverbs, that's really what Solomon has been helping his son to understand, is that in life, you're going to have to make choices. You're going to have to figure out which path you're going to be on. There are always going to be these competing, make the best decisions. How do we know which invitations we should and what we should not accept? I thought about invitations as I looked at this lesson, and I reflected in the video that I did on the fact that I didn't accept all invitations as a child because my parents did not allow us to do that. And I know that even today, I am very discriminating in where I choose choose to go, which invitations are good. And in reverse, I can be discriminating in which invitations I extend. So it is a big deal to kind of figure out those right spaces to be in and how we should engage. And that's exactly what we see. As Solomon continues to talk, we know that this is our last study, first of all, in Proverbs. And there's been so much in here. It's been really juicy. But he's been talking to his son, and the men of his community would ultimately get this kind of teaching. And even today, there's so much in here that we've been able to gain. This has been a very rich study. And he wants us to understand that there are benefits and there are blessings with wisdom. But we also see in here clearly that it's an option. So everyone doesn't operate in wisdom because they don't choose wisdom. So as we look at this portrait of two different women, as we study this chapter, verses 1-6 tell us about Lady Wisdom. Verses 13-18 tell us about Lady Folly. And this week, as I was studying, it seemed like verses 7-12 in the middle were kind of this sandwich that told us how we are to behave. But after talking out loud about it in my first class, I kind of feel differently about it. So it is sandwiched in the middle, but I think it makes a lot of sense as we roll out of the conversation of Lady Wisdom. So I'll explain that to you. And isn't that the beauty of God's word, that you can read it, but when you talk about it in other spaces, you know that I always ask God to allow his word to be rich and to be new. So let's look at Lady Wisdom. Today, I wish my room has been renovated since I was in here, so I wish my board were up. I would show you my side by side, because I literally made a chart that shows these two women side by side. In verse 1, we find wisdom. So let's talk about the portrait of Lady Wisdom. Lady Wisdom in verse 1 has built her own house, and she's carved its 7 columns. Now we know that wisdom has been personified here. We saw her last week as a person. So here this woman is again. And one thing that I note in verse 1 is that she's always active, right? Wisdom, every time we've seen her, she's been doing something. In chapter 8, we even found out that she was present from the formation, from the foundation of the world. She was present even in creation. And so now here we have her, and she's built her own house. That is a huge thing. I see, quite frankly, there's an independent woman here who has taken the resources and done what needs to be done in building her house. She's got a mission, she's got a purpose, and she's very focused on what needs to be done. Building a house is no minor undertaking. If you've anybody ever built a house before? And if you have built a house, what were the things that you looked at or you were concerned about, or something that you remember about the process? I have built one house, and I remember just literally being involved with every detail of building that home. From what did I want the facing of the front of the house to look like, what size windows or what type of windows. I had choices with that. I had choices with the flooring. I had choices with wall color. I had choices with where things would be configured in the house. And so, yes, Sister Deborah, she is building what is on a firm foundation for sure. And yes, Sister Dorothy, she is a phenomenal woman that can build something. And Sister Deborah makes a point that this is a firm foundation. How do we know it? Well, she's built her house, and that was an undertaking all its own. But let's look at these 7 columns. She uses 7 columns. And what is the purpose of a column? And some translations say a pillar. When I looked at those things, they are intended to make a structure firm and able to hold up under pressure. That is huge for me. That Lady Wisdom, that when we operate in wisdom, wisdom is designed to make us strong and to give us the ability to hold up under pressure. Life is going to deliver blows that are going to be difficult, and we need the ability to hold up under pressure. I also looked at it, and pillars are not the same as structural walls. So walls would have made different compartments of the home that we call rooms, but pillars they can be on the front. But if we look at the fact that there are 7, I assume that they're holding up the structure, which means that they're internal, and an internal pillar is different because there aren't walls, but that means that she's created what is essentially a large banquet hall, and you have visions of these 7 pillars that would hold up a structure. So it's intended to be structurally sound. It is intended to be a firm foundation. It is permanent. And so when I look at those are classifications of what we get when we get wisdom. Yes, Sister Cheryl, we get that support. Wisdom supports this structure, and wisdom wants a place in our life that is permanent. She wants to be there in a permanent way. Not only is it the soundness that we see, but there are 7 columns here. And 7, as we know when we see it in biblical numerology, is the number of completeness. So as we look at the structure that wisdom is built, I know we're just in verse 1, but that is a loaded idea to know that wisdom comes in our lives to be complete, to be firm, to be permanent. It is a complete and firm, yes, permanent structure. So aha for me is that wisdom builds perfectly and completely. I see that in verse 1 and verse 2 and in verses 3. I have concluded that wisdom is a queen. And good morning, Sister Nettie Pooh. We're glad you're here. She's a first timer. Y'all show her some love. We're glad you're here. As we're looking at verses 2 and 3, I've concluded that wisdom is a queen. She's royalty at its finest, because as you look at what she's created, there is a very opulent and stately structure that she has built to live in. And let me go back to those columns for just a minute. The pillars, the language was that she has carved them out, or she has hewn them out. Pillars would have been made out of wood or out of stone. And again, I see an independent woman here. Where did the wood come from? Where did the stone come from? So she has somehow procured resources. Wisdom will help you get what you need. Wisdom will help you find the resources that you need. There'll be some ways that you're able to move and things that you're able to accomplish. And people go, how did you get that? Because looking at you, lady, it does not seem like you should have been able to get a column that big in here and to make a structure like this, but you didn't get 1. You somehow got 7. And wisdom will help us to do that in our lives. People will say, you are just this. How did you make that kind of structure happen? So she's got this opulent and stately home. She has the resources to build something that is grand. And now in verses 2 and 3, we find out that she has servants as a part of her staff. She's now built this home, and she didn't build it just for herself. Now she wants to issue invitations. And we see in verses 2 and 3 that she's now preparing in this. I got a little ahead of myself. She's preparing first before she issues invitations. Here is the banquet that we're talking about. And yes, Sister Bernadette, God gave her the strength. We see she is a strong woman. We see that, thank you, Sister Robinson, a strong woman. Wisdom helps us to get what we need and get it the right way, Sister Evelyn. And so now she prepares this banquet. The next thing I see here is that wisdom makes provisions. Wisdom makes provisions for what we need. And this banquet, we talked about it being food and plenteous, but here she takes the time to prepare a meal that is substantive. And as we talked about our families being together and what these big banquets look like, any of those of you who are in the kitchen know what it takes to pull off something like that. I am now at the generation that is allowed to be in the kitchen. And notice I said the word allowed because, my grandmother was a cook. And then my mother and her sisters ran the kitchen. And somehow in the last year, they allowed me to make the peach cobbler now and the mac and cheese. But when we make mac and cheese in my family, 1 pan is not enough. Usually you need to show up with at least 3 of the large pans. And so when I thought about this banquet, Wisdom's banquet is substantive, which means it is large enough and plenty for all to enjoy it. And let's look at what's on the menu. That's a question that I'm going to come back to, because you need to know sometimes what's on the menu as you're making a decision. I know practically when I go out to eat, I'm a big person. I use Yelp all the time. I want to see the pictures and I want to see what's on the menu. So let's look at what's on the menu. What's on the menu here is there is meat and there is wine. Now, first I see that Lady Wisdom not only knows how to get trees hewn down or stone brought in, and she's an architect and can build a home, but now she's a whole butcher. She knows how to get meat and get it in and get it prepared. I told you my family is from the country. And so my grandfather was a farmer, and he had hogs and cattle, and he had a pond on the land, and we would fish. I have an uncle now who has cattle, and I have a cousin who has a pig farm. I understand what it means to be able to get in meat and prepare meat and what that process is like. And she's made all of that happen to prepare this banquet. And not only that, but we see another symbol of abundance in the wine that is offered. Keep in mind, there are some things that are symbolic about what we're seeing here. So I want you to pay attention. There's a house that's been built. There is someone who is making preparations for guests. There is meat, flesh, meat and wine that is being prepared. And I know that you've studied, so you know where some of this imagery is going to connect by the time we end this lesson. We see meat and wine. And not only that, but she sets the table in verse 2. I love a beautiful tablescape. I hosted with a group of people yesterday from my jurisdiction a virtual prayer breakfast. And one of the fun elements of the prayer breakfast, even though we couldn't be together, we challenged ladies to set your table. There is still something beautiful that happens when you set the table. Why is a table setting important? Well, it's beautiful to look at, first of all, and it sort of sets the tone for what is going to happen. But when you set your table, yes, it gives the tone and the feeling about people being together, about the care and concern that you took to make something beautiful. It lets people know that you thought they were important enough to put in a little bit of extra for them. And to be honest, it does help the appearance of the food when you're sitting down to a beautiful table. And so here she is. She's taken concern for the meal and then the beauty of the atmosphere for when people would come in. Sister Nettie Pooh says, Proverbs 15 and 17, the quality of family relationships is, not tied to wealth. The quality of hospitality is based on relationships, not the food provided. And she has provided a level of hospitality that cannot be denied here. We see that with the care, the concern. And now that she's put that time in, now she's ready to extend invitations. And she's sending invitations out. She's got servants who were likely girls in that time. And she goes along with her servants. She doesn't just send them out to do the work, but she's out. And remember, we're going to make some connections to the life of Christ to send out servants. Now that this table is spread and the feast is going on, it's ready. There are servants that go out and they're sending out to say the host is ready and she wants you to come. Come join her at the banquet that has been prepared. There's so, Sister Deborah, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker. Absolutely. That tickles me. I find humor in the lesson as well. I love it. Sister Dolores, that's a huge call out. We do eat with our eyes first. And here wisdom is, we know even from having studied other chapters in Proverbs that not only is the presentation beautiful, but we know that wisdom is a beautiful woman. So everything about this relationship is a beautiful host with a beautiful opportunity and now a beautiful invitation to come. Sister Dorothy People, she is leading by example. Sister Evelyn says, this is the feast. This is the feast of the Lord, and whatever we need is on the table. Absolutely. And what we need, what everything that's needed on this table is here. You're so correct. Let's look at the effort that's been put in so far. Because as we've continued to point out, wisdom is always, last week we saw wisdom is calling. She was out in the public places. She wasn't a secret. She's continued to put in the effort to call. And so there's this effort to make something beautiful. The effort now to let everyone know that they can come. The effort on the parts of the servants to get out and go do that which they've been charged to do. And then there's some effort on the part of the receiver, which is going to become important as we continue to talk, because even though wisdom makes every effort to get to us, and when we receive that invitation, you've got to return the effort in terms of accepting an invitation. You've got to return that. Let's keep going because there's so much in chapter 9 in verses 4 and 5. She's now urging them. She says, come. She's urging the simple. Now, I thought this was interesting because a lot of us, I know I can be this way. It happened on Friday. I had a ring at my doorbell and I looked outside and it wasn't someone that I invited. And sometimes I'm really bad about this. I can be sitting on the couch and I kind of have a glass inset in my doorway and I can see you and you can see me. But if I didn't invite you, I have been known to sit on the couch before because I just, everyone's, you got to be careful. And here she is, she's inviting total strangers into her home. She's not behaving in the ways that I did on Friday. She's actually going out and she wants a relationship with the stranger. It's very personal to have someone in your home. Wealth of wisdom, no pun intended. Wisdom has a wealth. It's not just for herself. It's for everyone, including a stranger, people that have no relationship with her today. She is calling aloud to them. She leads with warmth, Sister Bernadette Ricks, and she leads with love and by example. And as she's leading, she's calling aloud to, we talked about these people time and time again, the simple-minded. Who are they? They are the naive. So this was interesting as I read this lesson this week. We've been talking about the simple, and, it doesn't sound like a compliment to be in the group of the simple, but I had to come to this understanding. All of us at some point in our lives have been the simple. All of us at some point in our lives have been naive about something or some opportunity. We've all been naive. So at some point, wisdom has even called to us as someone who is simple. Verses 4 and 16, Sister Cheryl says, wisdom and folly use the same words, but their invitations are indeed very different. And thank you for calling that out. We're going to see it. Sister Dolores Tyson says on the invitation, not until we have become humble and teachable and understand and in all of God's holiness and sovereignty and God can divine wisdom become ours. Absolutely. And so she's calling Sister Shirley Ross to those who are naive, who lack judgment, those who are easily drawn in. And she's saying, remember, she's been saying this since chapter 1. Chapter 1, she says, how long? How long are you going to be simple? You don't have to live this way. There's something different. Come on in. I want to show you that. And as we look at this invitation, one thing I continue to see is that everybody, even the simple, can learn. And so she has this invitation that's extended to all, which means that all have the ability to accept what she has to offer. There have been kind of 6 parts to this invitation. We started to look at them. There are 6 action calls inside of here. She invites them to turn in, to come and eat my bread, to come and drink my wine, to forsake foolishness, to live, to go in the way of understanding. So I have a question to you. How do you respond, or how do you evaluate invitations? How do you evaluate and respond to invitations? And I'll watch for your comments in the chat box, because Sanford Johnson is right. Everybody has played the fool sometime. Sanford Johnson, I appreciate you, because there are other parts in this lesson today that I told my Sunday school class earlier. My gospel music collection was not top of mind as I read, particularly about Lady Folly. I remember other lyrics that seemed to be so appropriate with what she has to offer. We'll get there in just a second. Sister Tracy says that Proverbs teaches us that knowledge is good, but a difference stands between knowledge, having the facts, and wisdom, the ability to apply those facts to life. Without wisdom, our knowledge is useless. Absolutely. And we've continued to say that wisdom is learning to live skillfully, right? It is learning that we don't want to make the same mistakes over and over, and learning those success strategies to get us through what we need to go through in life. And in verse 6, that's exactly what wisdom is saying. She's saying, leave. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to do what you're doing. Leave that behind. Come over here. And when you get here, begin to learn and to use good judgment. This was actually my favorite verse in this passage, because she says to forsake foolishness in the King James. And foolishness is all around. Foolishness is everywhere. And it is always trying to get us to engage with it. And we're going to see that. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but wisdom is encouraging her guests to choose her. And as we're thinking about, when we think about invitations, I ask you, what are you looking at as you evaluate? Sister Dolores is looking at the motive. What is the purpose of an invitation? Brother Kevin says, evaluate who the invitation is from and the purpose of the event. Also, what am I contributing to the event, and what will I receive from it? Sister Bernadette, who else is invited? What is the main focus of the dinner? Absolutely. And so as we think about these things, again, I've told you that we're going to always have choices. And as we gain wisdom, these are the kinds of questions that we will want to always employ when we are deciding where we're going to go and who we're going to hang out with and who are going to be the good people for us to be connected to. These are all invitation questions that we want to be able to answer. And wisdom will cause you to do that. At this point in my life, I continue to say this: I'm not above having new friends. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm very cautious now when new enter in and out of my life. I want to understand, why are they here? Why are we connected? What is it that I'm supposed to give in this relationship? What am I supposed to receive? Why are we connected to each other? And if I can't answer that question and I don't understand why a person is present in my space, then I am being very cautious in this time and season, because I understand every invitation is not a good invitation. But here is Lady Wisdom, and we see some things in her invitation that are good. And when I listen to her words and what she's saying and how she's prepared, I have the sensing that her invitation is good. There is an assumption here that wisdom is always our choice, because when you see an invitation, that's what's key. We have the ability to choose it or not to choose it. And she's saying, choose this invitation, leave foolishness alone. I also noticed this, that as she is making her appeal to those who are the simple, she's not overly evaluating their bad decisions beforehand. Wisdom is giving us a chance to be better in our days going forward. It doesn't discredit us for anything that we did before we became acquainted with wisdom, before her invitation was extended, before she was out saying, come. Doesn't matter what they did before. Wisdom was still available for those to choose. And so people who often feel that they've been given to their own freedoms are the ones who believe that they have a great life. Those who get to, I do what I want to do. I'm my own person. I'm in charge of me. I get that. I'm 7 times 3? I'm 21. I'm 21 plus. I get that. But what wisdom is saying is that we all still have something that is guiding us. And I want to be that guide in your life. I want to be the one that tells you this is actually how you live your best life over here when I am your guide. Wisdom allows us to evolve from who we were to where we are going to, and yet to be. Brother Kevin, thank you for that. Sister Brenda Hamilton says, so we should choose wisely. Arguan Bates, hey, my relationship with the person who invited me, that's going to be important. So I agree with you. And so as we continue to look at wisdom, I told you that verses like 7 through 12 are sort of sandwiched in the middle. And at first it seemed like just kind of more instruction on life for me. But as I talked this morning, I saw something different. So wisdom now has prepared a space, prepared a banquet, and extended invitations. We're now up to the point where the receiver has to choose to accept your invitation, right? So most of you know that I come out of a sales background before I went to law school. And so I've always been in a space where I've had a product to offer, and I would bring my product and share my product, but it was up to my customer or my client to decide whether to accept that product, whether it was valuable to them, whether they would be willing to exchange value for it, whether there would be consideration if they were going to pay money, and ultimately take it as something that they will use. That is what I see now as I look at Lady Wisdom. She's made an offer. It's like a salesperson. She's made an offer. I've got an amazing product. I've got an opportunity for you. I have a home. It's beautiful. I've got a meal for you. I want to help you. I believe I can. You need my help, and I can help you be better. But as we look at verses 8 and 9, I clearly see that there will be times that you may know that there is something better for someone. You may know that you can help them, but everybody is not going to accept wisdom's invitation. And so she already gives the answers for how do you sort of navigate in that space where you're trying to help someone and it seems like they cannot be helped. How are you going to help that person? Elder Kelly says, receiving wisdom requires you to make an effort. Wisdom has done her part. Now the rest is on you. And so that's exactly what's happening in verses 8 and 9, where she's saying, you may try to help. I'm trying to help you. But when it does, if it has a situation where it's not working, Don't spend your time trying to convince that person beyond what they're willing to be convinced. You are going to run into people. Everybody is not going to receive wisdom. She knows that going out. I am not going to get 100% of the people to whom I've extended an invitation. Those who are supposed to be in here are going to come. I'm going to do all that I can to get them in. But when I realize that I'm dealing with somebody, and they're called mockers or scoffers in some translations, but when I realize that I'm dealing with someone who is going to bully or ridicule or reject the ways of God, when I realize that I am dealing with someone who doesn't want correction or doesn't want to be better, who doesn't want to hear, when I realize that I'm dealing with someone who doesn't want my help, who's not going to receive correction no matter what I say, that they're content with being, my classmates earlier called it raggedy and ratchet. When I realize they're content with being simple or content with living the way that they are, when I realize that I'm dealing with someone who doesn't want the word of God, they don't desire to be better. There are some people who just don't want to be better. Like maybe they realize that being better comes with a higher level of accountability, and they're okay with being with where they are. The big message is here, you can't help everyone. And wisdom knows this. You can make it beautiful. I'm going to put it out here. I'm going to give it my all. But when I realize that I'm dealing with someone who doesn't want this, we saw it in the New Testament. I can't cast my pearls before swine. And so I've got to watch how my time is spent. Time is valuable. So wisdom is saying, don't waste your time on people who don't want your time and who don't want your help, but spend your time on the wise. Wise people want to hear instruction. Your time is spent well here. Make your efforts count right here. Put your time in on people who will listen, who will learn, who want to become better. Why? Because they aren't going to make fun of you. They're going to love you. They will love you even when it means that you bring a mistake to their attention. And so I think there are two sides of this as well. How do we know what group of people we're going to be one or the other as well? So not only is it who we talk to, but it's how we receive information. Like the difference between the mocker and the wise is really just their attitude. So even there are two sides. There's us as people who share as Lady Wisdom, but also how we as the end user evaluate opportunities or people when they come to us with things that are said. And when we have people, everybody needs somebody that you can hear from. You need to make sure that you can hear from people in love, people who will share with you. When you have friends who will tell you, you didn't say that the right way, you didn't handle that the right way. And that's why it's important to know who's in your space. Like I kind of laugh about this sometimes, but it's true. I literally have two very good friends. And when, let's say something goes on and it just drives me nuts, I can call one friend and I can have a little moment and be a little fussy, and that's the friend who says, yes, I wouldn't take that. You should say this and you should say that. And you know what? Maybe it gives you that moment of satisfaction that at least you got it out and you got to express yourself. But I've got another friend who says, I call her, I need somebody to talk me off the ledge. But those are my friends who will come back and let me know you didn't handle a situation the right way. Or I had a friend a few weeks ago who says, do you realize that you're being a little fussy right now? And I hadn't realized it, but there was so much going on that I was short in patience with what was going on around me. But to be able to hear from your friends, people who love you. Proverbs, let me find this scripture. I had it in my notes. Proverbs 27:6 says that wounds from a friend can be trusted, but anybody who's always telling you you're wonderful, multiple kisses, that's an enemy. You need someone that you can hear from and hear from in love. The wise, we know the difference from the wise and the mocker by our attitudes. And the difference is that you want to benefit. As a person who's wise, you want to grow. You want to be better. You don't always want to operate in a space that doesn't take into account anything else, but you want to be careful to step back. Let's see what you all are saying. Sister Brenda says, step back and allow things to fall where they may. And they're going to fall on one side or the other. Absolutely. Wisdom says the choice is yours. You can live or you can die. It's up to you. Sister Dorothy People says that. Sister Tyson, you cannot make anyone want better for themselves if they don't want it. You are absolutely right. And not only that, but I will tell folks all the time, I can't want better for you than you want for yourself. You got to be engaged. So when you understand that you are receiving receiving rebuke. We don't like that word. That word is hard because it always seems like it's an embarrassment. But rebuke is sometimes just that getting you back in line so we don't get too far away. And God gives us, we call them accountability partners, but we get those checks and balances that are intended to keep us in the way of holiness, to keep us on the straight path. And so we should be those people who value the voice of wisdom and not turn it away. Wisdom when it comes from those that we value wisdom from, and we are continuously in spaces that we can grow. We have to know that we never outgrow the ability to learn. We are all, until we close our eyes, there's always something that we can learn. So a wise man knows that a person loves them when they love them enough to tell them the truth. Okay, so Lady Wisdom has extended to this banquet. She knows that everyone will not come. I see in verses 8 and 9 that she's already anticipating that there may be rejection. And that was a question that came up earlier in my class. How do you deal with rejection? Well, part of it is you just need to anticipate that not everybody is going to hear what you have to say. But here she is in 8 and 9, and she's already decided, I know where I'm going to spend my time. I use this phrase, you need to learn to fish where the fish are. Fish where your opportunity is. All right, I had a ton of questions today, but this is a great lesson, and I need to get us to Lady Folly here. So again, there are going to be times that we have to realize that we need to be held accountable for the things that we do, Let's see. I have a question for you, and I'm going to watch for your answers as I transition to the final verses about Lady Folly. How does it feel to walk away from someone who won't hear, even when you know it's for their benefit? How do you walk away from that? If we know we're not going to win everybody, and the clip art that I used in my TSSG notes, if you downloaded those, it's a phrase that's popular in pop culture, says, who gonna check me, boo? When you run up on somebody with the attitude of who gonna check me, boo? Who's gonna get me in check? Who can tell me what to do? How do you walk away from someone that won't hear, even when you know it's for their benefit? Verse 10 reminds us that the fear of the Lord is where this all begins. And we've seen this repeated over and over again, that the ability to gain wisdom and to grow in wisdom begins with understanding and knowing who God is. We learned that back in chapter 1, verse 7, that a lot of people are looking to other sources for where to start, but you will always be ineffective if you don't start at the right place. And the starting block is always going to be with God, not being boogeyman afraid of him, but a fear, a knowledge, a respect, a reverence to submit. And I saw somebody mention that earlier, that you can't come into wisdom until you realize that you don't know everything. You can't come into being better until you realize that you have a deficit. And we don't understand deficit until we understand relationship. And that relationship is that we're always up under God. We're always, and that's another thing, keep that relationship looking up, not looking so much at other things. Don't make that where you start. You may benefit from some other things, but you always want to start by looking up. And I'm looking at how you help others and correct them. I know it can be hurtful. It can be hard. And Sister People says that we just have to pray as we're trying to work through that process. So Lady Wisdom, we've seen her. And now she's contrasted, and that's how Solomon writes, through comparison and contrasting. And we see a contrasting personality in verses 13 through 18. And we met Lady Wisdom, and now in comes Lady Folly. She's a different woman. She is a brash woman. Lady Folly, another way of saying foolishness. And she lives as if God does not exist. Lady Folly does what she wants to do, when she wants to do it, and how she wants to do it. And all she's looking for now is some other friends to do it with her. She is personified as a prostitute or a harlot. And here she is, and some things about her, she tries to behave like Lady Wisdom, but she is in a space where she is calling out to a residue of people. So now that's why I told you verses 7 through 12 makes sense to me. There's an invitation extended. Lady Wisdom says, I'm going going for all that I can, but I acknowledge that there are going to be some people that are not trying to hear what I'm saying. I'm going to lose them. But those who don't heed Lady Wisdom are still going to have an option. They still have an invitation. They have an invitation that is given to them right here by a woman that is described as Sister Wandi, that she is described as ignorant. Absolutely. Depending on your translation, she is ignorant, but she is a prostitute, a harlot, ignorant, loud, boisterous, calling out, trying to get attention to herself. She wants to be seen and heard. That was one of the takeaways for me. Foolishness wants to be seen and foolishness wants to be heard. We've got to watch our actions and what we say so that we don't put foolishness on display. The definition of ignorance is lacking knowledge or the ability to comprehend a thing. My pastor said it this way before. There are some things that you know, some things that you don't know, and some things you don't know you don't know. And that's actually the most dangerous category. And that's where is. She is that level of ignorant. And what we're seeing here is that she's an evil influence. She's got false love. She is lost. I'm reading your comments. Loud, talking loud and saying nothing. Sister Cheryl said, watch this chick. Watch this chick because she is a bad imitation. We know all about imitations. Maybe your thing is shoes or handbags, but every handbag, look at those logos on those bags. Are those double C's? Are they C for coaches? Are they double C's? Are they double G's? Like you got to look at what is an imitation to figure it out. It's always in the finer details that you can tell some of the imitations from the originals. And that's what we got to pay attention to with Lady Folly. Look at the finer details because they are two women who both have homes and they're both calling out to someone. How can that's my next question for you. How can two things that seem so similar be so different? And Lady Folly's message is, and I told somebody earlier that there was other music that came to me with this. There's one song in pop culture that says, you can have whatever you like. And that's what she's saying. You can have whatever you like when you come in this house. She is attempting to imitate Lady Wisdom at a home in her doorway. But look at that. Look at that by itself. Lady Wisdom made effort. She got up and went out with her servants. She wanted to extend her invitation. She made it personal. Lady Folly is sitting in her own doorway trying to get you to come in, telling you everything about what's great in her home. She's also mocking Lady Wisdom at a high place in the city, but her job is to try to get people to engage with her. She has a menu. Sister Brenda, thank you. Her menu is nowhere near as substantive. Lady Wisdom was offering bread and wine. Lady Folly is over here with a prison menu. She's offering bread and water. She's camouflaging and easy to lead people into hell, Sister Deborah People says, and that is for sure. You've got to watch what you engage with and watch the subtlety of engagement because, again, here's a woman who looks like she could be as nice as the other woman. She appears to have a home. She's calling out to the same group of people, the simple, those who you need my help. And oh goodness, when I think about how foolishness is attaching itself in 2020, it is coming through very covert gates. It is coming through our feelings and our emotions. Are you feeling alone? Are you feeling like you're missing a loved one? Are you feeling they're looking for deficit areas in our lives to slide into and to seem to be a solution to those spaces that we need? I do take very personal right now entryways into gates of grief and gates of loss, things that are trying to attract us into other belief systems to show us ways to stay connected with the dead. I'm so sensitive to things like that because I watch how they come in and they're subtle. And I even know that you got to watch how you engage with a thing, even when you think you said no. I told you about a man who knocked on my door Friday, and I actually answered, but I didn't open the door. So watch this. I never opened the door, but I engaged with him. Through the door, I said yes, and he told me that he was there representing a pest control company, and I said, no, thank you. I already have a pest control company. I should have walked away then. When you say no to something, you got to learn to walk away. But I allowed him the next question. And that's what we've got to watch for, because Lady Folly is just that tricky. And his job as a salesman was to keep me engaged. That's what foolishness wants to do, is to keep you engaged. And so he says, well, can I ask who you're already using? Well, I should have walked away, but I answered his question. And then he went on, well, you know, your neighbor down the street is using that company. And she just switched to us because she's been having ants in her yard. Have you seen ants? And so as I watched his strategy, it was his job to keep me on the line as long as he possibly could. Foolishness is willing to engage with you as long as you answer back. And so we've got to watch engaging. Don't answer back. That's what we saw early in this chapter. Lady Wisdom is saying, just say no. Walk away. Forsake foolishness. When you say no, walk away and let it go. And in verses 15 through 17, Lady Folly is continuing. She calls out, and she's calling to men. She's calling to men who are passing by, who are minding their own business. What is this seductress trying to get men to come in and do? I'll leave that to your imagination, but I've already told you that she's a harlot and she's a prostitute. So you know what she's trying to get the men to come in and partake in. When I look at her way of being able to seduce someone, here's what I know. You are seduced by the thing that you're attracted to. And so she's calling out to men based on what she knows their attraction to be. And that's why you got to be busy in this season, guarding those vulnerable places in your life, because wisdom knows what you like. Foolishness knows what you like. Forgive me. Foolishness knows what you like, and foolishness is going to come at you in those ways. Yes, I need to lose a few pounds, but foolishness doesn't show up for me in the form of a potato chip. I don't care about salty snacks. Oh, but Oreo cookies and cream ice cream, that is my entry gate right there. I'm a sugar person. So seduction knows what you like. And here's this woman, Folly knows what these men like, and she knows. You got to watch what it means to be seduced. Watch what you allow to have the capability to seduce you. Again, she's a good imitation. She's calling out to the same audience, those of you who lack in a certain area. Thank you, Sister Cheryl, for being kind to this ministry. I got to talking. I saw your love earlier. I appreciate you and your engagement. And LB Dawson, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for that. She's calling and saying, come to me, those who are simple, who are lack judgment. And we've got to watch again what is able to tempt us. And when she's calling them in, she's trying to convince them that what is bad is actually good. She's urging and she's doing it through what seems to be exciting. That's another thing that we've got to watch for. Things that appear to be exciting, things that appear to be things that we're going to get away with. There's kind of this sick fascination with doing things that we think we can get away with and things that other people may not find out about. And she's saying stolen waters are refreshing and secret things are better. I told you there was music that it reminded me of, and there was a song written by a group called Atlantic Star, and it talked about two people taking a chance together to be alone, knowing they shouldn't be together because if others found out, it would mess up happy homes. The song was entitled Secret Lovers, and that's exactly who Lady Folly is trying to be in our lives. And maybe it's not sexual seduction, but she's trying to convince you into a space and in a life that allows you both to be confined out. In verse 18 is that even though, because what we're knowing here is that there will be some that accept her invitation, but what they don't know is that on the inside of her house are other people who accepted her invitation before, as special as she may have made those men feel, as special as they can make the simple feel, as special as they made any passerby who said yes and engaged. What you didn't know was what was on the other side of the door. And you're not the first person to come in the door. You're not the first person that foolishness has said we can do this. You're not the first person that foolishness has tried to trip up. You're not the first one. And when you get inside, what you find out is that you're in a land of dead bodies. Inside of foolishness's house is a bunch of corpses, a bunch of skeletons from people who have been in there before. I remember the TV show, and in fact, you see lots of them now in social media. They're clickbait because they ask you, where are they now? When we look at childhood stars or people who were really big at some point, and you ask, where are they now? That's the question I thought of with these people who passed by, who accepted her invitation, who gave into foolishness. Where are they now? And a lot of them are those dead bodies inside, because sin will get you in and it will take you further than you wanted to go and keep you longer than you wanted to stay. And what verse 18 is saying is that a lot of people get into things and they never make it out. So we've got to be careful. We see these two women. Folly is successful in seducing these men, and they don't realize that on the other side is death. Let me give you one more thing, because I've got 2 minutes before I've got to walk in the sanctuary. 2 different men, 2 different women, 2 different women. Thank you, Sister Mildred Stover. I appreciate you. Brother Kevin Ricks, thank you all for sharing with this ministry today. And I invite anyone who desires to share. They've used the super chat. I did list my Cash App above. You know I'm not good at that. But as we close out, we are encouraged to choose wisdom. You're going to always have choices. And I hope you saw that wisdom's invitation is very much like our invitation to Christ, that there's a prepared place for us. Invitations have been extended, and God continues to call of Christ. An invitation is given, but it must be received. Just like wisdom, there is a slaughter and a sacrifice. There's meat at wisdom's feast, and there's already been a sacrifice made for us through the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. The wine at wisdom's feast is the blood, the Passover blood in the New Testament, the new covenant. That is the blood of Jesus Christ. The invitation is given to us from Jesus in St. John chapter 6, verses 53 to 56, where he says, come and eat and drink of my wine. Whosoever eats of my flesh and drinks of my blood remains in me and I in them. So we have the invitation to come into the house. I want to remind you that you're always going to have choices, but the table is spread. The feast of the Lord is going on, and we need to pull up a seat at the house of wisdom. Reject foolishness, reject folly. Culture tells us that we're free to choose our own, but we know that we've got to keep God first, knowing that fear in him is the beginning of everything. Fight justifying things in your own flesh that tell you that it's okay to do what you want to do, and make the choice to fear the Lord and to live for him. It's 11 o'clock, and I've got to be submissive to my own leadership and make sure that I get into the sanctuary. Thank you so much, Auntie Granny and Elder Kelly, for supporting ministry. I love you all so much. I'll see you tomorrow on Markup Monday. We welcome you to join us on Dominion is Live. Go to Facebook and look up Dominion Word. I will be in the sanctuary in about 90 seconds. You all have an awesome Sunday. Love you. Bye-bye.